Hey there and welcome to my video for the new Midi Fighter 3D from DJ Tech Tools. This is a 16 button MIDI controller. It uses arcade buttons which are RGB lit. And what that means is you can use the software to select the colours of the arcade buttons and also how they interact. Inside is a high resolution motion sensor, and that can be used to control parameters in your software by moving the Midi Fighter 3D around, which is excellent for performances. Now in the box you get this welcome card, which is signed, hand signed actually, by Ian Golden, the founder of DJ Tech Tools, and a welcome note, you're one of the first 1,000 people to use the Midi Fighter, we can't wait to see how you use it, etc. You also get a nice link to some excellent tutorials and videos on how to use the Midi Fighter, and there's a promotion on the back as well there. Also in the box included was this cute little keyring, which basically has a controller pot on the end. Now I've seen these on the DJ Tech Tools site and I hadn't taken much notice of them, but I can say without a doubt this is the best pot I have ever felt. It's almost squidgy to the touch, and it's really well made, but best of all, the more you use it, the grippier it gets. It seems the more you sweat, the grippier the actual controller gets, which is obviously excellent if you're sweating out in a club or what have you, or you're doing something difficult and you're working up a sweat basically. But definitely check those out. I'm going to. That is just a really well made controller pot. Also in the box obviously is the Midi Fighter itself, and I'll just get this cam on a tripod and we can look at that in more detail. Hey, the Midi Fighter 3D comes really well packaged in a box that wouldn't look out of place in a Mac store or somewhere like that. There's language support for Spain, Germany, France and Japan. There's a short description on the back here. It says it's a DJ controller, but I fully intend to use it with programs like Sugarbyte's Tornado, and can be really valuable in production work as well. So let's get the thing open. So we've opened the box, and here is the Midi Fighter with its 16 arcade buttons. Now last time I played an arcade machine was probably in the late 80s, and I had imagined in my head that they were a lot bigger than this, but I could be wrong. I could be thinking of pinball machines or something. However, they are proper arcade buttons and they feel excellent. You can get a nice quick action on them. So you have 16 of these, but you also have these 4 banks up the side here. So you can select each bank of 16, so that's a total of 64 arcade buttons that you can assign to parameters, as well as the motion sensor, I assume. The unit itself feels very solid. It's got a decent amount of weight to it, but it's also light enough to manipulate, certainly portable. On the back here we have a plaque. It says designed by DJ Tech Tools in San Francisco, assembled in China. You've also got these nicely bezeled feet for rolling around on the tabletop when you want to accurately change parameters about. They feel almost slightly rubberized, and they're attached really well. I can't imagine them ever coming off. And this side here is got this sort of rubberized feel to it, and it all feels very well constructed. Now one of the things I definitely wanted to be built well is the USB port here. I know on my Native Instruments machine it is very poorly built in the USB, and you have to be very careful that it doesn't break. A lot of people have had issues with those, although I believe they've sorted that out now. So obviously with a unit like this that you're going to be moving about, you don't want any loose connections, and I'm happy to report it's extremely sturdy and well built. I completely trust it. But not only that, you get this nice high quality USB cable that sits at a right angle, so will sit flush to the unit. It's got this gold connector, and it's got this very satisfying click as you push in the cable, which holds it in nicely, and you have to give it quite a tug to get it out, so you know it's not going to come flying out when you're moving the Midi Fighter about. So that's excellent news. Also in the box is this Midi Fighter 3D sticker, which you can attach to your laptop or your mixer or whatever you would like. And that's about it for the unboxing. I'm now going to look at the software. Unfortunately, I don't have any music software on my PC, so it's going to be a Mac only demonstration. So we get onto that now. Hi there, here we are at the DJ Tech Tools support page for the Midi Fighter 3D. Once you have the Midi Fighter, you're going to need to download the editor software here, and I'm going to download it for Mac OS X. Now I will say that DJ Tech Tools website is excellent. They've got live chat over here, which I've used before, and the support in general is absolutely excellent. So I'm going to download the editor here for my Mac. I'm going to download over there. Now I'll just skip through this video just to give you an idea of the sort of support you get.
And a little bit of detail. Once you make an adjustment to any of these, you're going to click Send to Midi Fighter, and it'll go ahead and update the MIDI automatically. Now you'll notice that when I hit these buttons, you're seeing a nice trail effect that's happening here. That is in the settings when you tilt the controller. You can see the colors wipe up and over the controller. You might know we have some special super combos built into the Midi Fighter. One that everyone knows is if you press all these 4 buttons at the same time, 5th note is sent out. Super combo.
Okay, so you get the general idea. There's walkthroughs on the site page, and here's the mapping section. Choose your mapping. There's an excellent support video here for Traktor, however I'm looking for Ableton, so let's go over to the mappings page. Now here there is support for a myriad of controllers uploaded by various people, and we are interested in these two here for the Midi Fighter. Now I'm looking specifically for the Ableton Live one here, and here we have Mad Zach's Midi Fighter 3D Ableton template. Of course you can make your own, but these are great to give you a starting point or some ideas. And there's an excellent video to go with this one as well. Now I have to be signed in to download that, so I'll do that later. And here's a little snapshot of what each button does. So for now, let's get the editor software loaded so we can look at that. Hi, so let's take a look at the Midi Fighter 3D's editor software. So you just need to navigate where you have the installation file. So I will need to go to my music technology folder, hardware, and it's just the usual package installation. So you need to double click the package that you've downloaded from the DJ Tech Tools site, and it's a 34.5 megabyte install. So we'll install that. My password. And installation was successful. Now we should have an icon in our applications, and there we have the Midi Fighter utility. Okay, so at the moment we haven't got the Midi Fighter attached, so we'll just attach that. You'll see a little animation. Now there's an update. When I first installed this, it updated automatically. It was very quick and there were no problems whatsoever. So we have some settings here. Now we can select the MIDI channel. It's recommended that you leave it on channel 3 if you want to use the templates provided by DJ Tech Tools. You can also set the velocity that the arcade buttons respond to. It's at 127 by default. There's a software mode. By default it's with Traktor. I've selected Ableton because I'm going to use it with that. I think that just affects how the sensors respond to the different software. And there's also, you can enable and unenable combos. Pressing combinations of buttons much as you would do with a video game to get a certain effect. There's also bank buttons. I'm not entirely sure what this does, and it doesn't go into much detail on the site either, unfortunately. I'm sure somebody can fill me in, but the choices are 4 banks enabled, 4 banks disabled hold, and 4 banks disabled toggle. There's also this animations button, the spark animation I'll show you now. You can basically turn these on or off, so you get this flashing animation. I'll just switch it to a different bank that I haven't chosen the colours for yet, so you can get a better demonstration. And as you see, pressing different buttons sends this spark animation. Now you also get a pitch and edge tilt, and that's the animation provided when you use the motion sensor. So if we tilt it up, you get that effect. If we tilt it from side to side, we get that effect. Obviously it has a different effect depending on what colours you've chosen by default. Okay, so that's animations. We also are able to change the rotation, whether it's relative, absolute, or whether you have it disabled, and also whether you have the motion sensor engaged for various functions. And I imagine that's helpful if you're DJing and you haven't got a flat surface. You obviously don't want any parameters being changed that you might have assigned to the motion controller. I can't actually think of any other situations, but I'm sure there are instances where you'd want to disable those. Now, once you've made your settings, you can export them, and you can also import settings, and it will load those, and you just need to send them to the Midi Fighter here, and that will change the colours you've chosen and the settings here. Also in the menu are links to the website, quite handy links to mappings and the DJ Tech Tools site. And there's also this bootloader mode, and factory reset will be very handy. I'm not too sure what plugins does at the moment, perhaps that's something to come. I'm not too sure. So that's the utility. Now you can also change colours here. Now you can change the inactive colour, basically the colour that's set around the button while it's not being pressed. Here you basically pick a colour and just click on the outer ring, and that will select it. Now if you click a colour and select the active colour, that's the colour the LEDs change to when the button is pressed. Once you've selected your colours, you need to send it to the Midi Fighter for them to become active. Once you've made your settings again, you can export it so you can call it back at a later date. And obviously you can flick through the different banks here with the buttons at the top here. I've just done this sort of Roland 808 yellow, orange and red colour, but obviously you can select colours that make sense to you and for your software. Also you have this tab for documentation, where you can get quick links to the documentation and also links to the DJ Tech Tools site. So that's the Midi Fighter 3D editor software. Hi there, for this last section I'm going to assign some of the Midi Fighter's arcade buttons and also the motion sensor to Ableton Live. Now I've prepared a simple project over here with a few electro house clips in it. I'll just give Ableton a wiggle because QuickTime's screen capture is playing with it a bit. That's better. Now we don't want these clips over here, we're just interested in these 4 over here. And so first off I'm going to click this button in the top right, which is the MIDI assign button, and as you can see you also get this plane over here which shows what MIDI mappings you have made. You can open and close that from the side there. So if I click on this first clip over here, I can assign one of the arcade buttons to it to play the clip just by pressing it. So if I now press that first button there, you can see it's assigned a CC48 to play that clip, and you can continue doing that, assigning arcade buttons to different clips. I also want to be able to stop the clip, so I'm going to assign this stop button down here, which basically stops any of the clips in a given track. So that will stop any clips playing in one audio, and that will stop any of the clips playing in audio 2 over here. So let's just test everything's working there. I haven't set any quantization up here, so everything will play as I press it. So let's just hear that. So as you can hear, all the buttons are assigned. Now I also want to demonstrate the motion sensor. This is a very high resolution motion sensor and I found it to be very accurate for changing parameters. So I'm going to demonstrate this by using a plugin. We're going to use the FabFilter Volcano 2 plugin, which is a filter, and we're going to put that on the master so it affects all of the output. And I'm going to choose a preset. I'm going to choose this high cut 1, which is basically a low pass filter. So let's hear how that affects the sound. Okay, so that's the filter. Now I want to assign 2 controls to the Midi Fighter. One is the cutoff frequency, the second is the on-off switch. Now the reason I want to assign the on-off switch is because even with the filter wide open it still colours the sound. So if we just play it now you'll be able to hear that actually. So yeah, we've got a bit of resonance going on, so we've got a bit of crunchy distortion that we want while the filter's on, but not while we're not using it. So to assign the Midi Fighter to those controls, I'm going to again press the MIDI edit button over there. Now to assign the frequency cutoff, I just literally click on the parameter and it will appear down here in the bottom left. Now if I click on that, I can then assign the movement switch button, whatever it is that I want to affect that parameter. In this case it's the motion sensors, and I want it to change as I tilt the Midi Fighter forward. So to assign it, I just tilt the Midi Fighter forward now, and that has now assigned control change number 1, as we can see over here, to the cutoff frequency. Now I want to change the on-off button with the exact same control change number, which is CC1 over here. So I do exactly the same thing, except I click on the on-off button, which is down here in the bottom left, and I again tilt the Midi Fighter forward to get the same control change. Okay, so if we come out of MIDI mode here, we are not actually set up properly, because if I tilt it forward, there is no change, and that's because when I'm tilting it forward it is actually opening the filter. If I just close it here and tilt forward again, you'll see as I tilt forward it opens the filter rather than closing it. Also, as I tilt it, it's not switching on the device until I get down to about 64. It's not turning it on and off. So we obviously need to change some values in the MIDI map. So we go back into the MIDI map and we can see our problem here. The device on switch isn't activated. The minimum value is at 64. Now you can change that by left clicking on it and dragging it down. I'm going to change it to 0. Now because our filter is doing the opposite of what we want it to do, basically opening the filter instead of closing it, we can rectify that by inverting the range, and that basically just swaps around the values. So if we right click on that, we can select this invert range button, and you'll see over here that the ranges are inverted. Instead of going from 0 to 1, it now goes to 1 to 0, so it has the opposite effect. So now when we tilt forward it will close the filter instead of opening it. So let's just check that. I need to tilt it to pick up the range that it's at the moment. So as you can see now, as I tilt forward, we're closing the filter. But you might notice, if you look in the bottom left, that it's actually not switching the filter on and off as we want it to. And that's because if we go back into the MIDI map here, this 0 value is having no effect on it whatsoever. We actually need to have some sort of a value for it to activate the filters on off switch in the first place. So if we just left click on it and push up on the mouse till we get to 1. I can get 1. There we go. We should be okay now. So if we come out of MIDI map, when I tilt forward, it should switch on the device. The device is actually on at the moment, so I just need to quickly flick back to turn it off. So when I tilt forward now, it should switch on the device and lower the cutoff frequency. And hey presto, we now have a fully mapped filter. So we can have a play with that now. I'll just select the master so you can see what's going on with the filter. Okay, so a very simple assignment, but very effective. So basically you can get as complicated or keep it as basic as you want. I find the key with Ableton is to check your values, check your polarities, whether you need to invert stuff or not. The thing that Traktor has over Ableton is you can control the way the buttons work by default. You can do that in Ableton using things like Max for Live or third-party MIDI filters and things like that, but you can't necessarily change how a button works by default in Ableton. And what I mean by that is sometimes things are momentary rather than being able to toggle buttons. So pressing a button will only have an effect while you've got your finger on it. You can't assign a button to, say, press it and it leaves a device on and then press it again to turn it off. It's on off. You can't switch it on and switch it off. It's on or off. As I say, there are workarounds, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of posts on how to get around it. But it's really horses for courses. Ableton does a lot that Traktor doesn't, and Traktor does a lot that Ableton doesn't. So there's no preference in software for me. So that's it basically, and what I will say is the Midi Fighter is a very solidly built unit. The motion sensor is absolutely excellent. It gives you scope to do things that you couldn't do with a rotary encoder, and it is very high resolution. You can be very accurate with it, as you heard, and I totally recommend it. It is well built, an excellent controller, and it looks pretty cool too. Thanks for looking.